I would like to tell you the story about Africa, or what I call the African story. But this is multi-dimensional, and there's got to be an angle to it. So the thing is, many stories have been told about Africa and Africans. Which story did you hear? Now, let's put it this way. You are black, but a non-black has told you the story of your life. Yes, you are black. Therefore, of course, you are an African by origin. You have heard stories about your journey. You know what those stories are. I don't know which version you heard. Who told you the story? And which version did you hear? And when you heard the story, did you even know that you heard just a version and there are other versions of that same story? So consequently, you are now full of hate. Or you might also be full of love. But are you now full of hate? Or are you full of love? Now, has the storyteller succeeded to keep you bound in hate? So the question is, how much do you hate other black people? I mean, you being African, you being black. All right? Now, or on the other hand, how much do you love other black people? Do you love your storyteller more than you love your own people? Now think about it. Have you been strategically ostracized because of what they told you? And I'm going to ask you, are you going to remain miserable all your life because of what you heard and the hate on your inside? Now I'm just going to say, find your roots and shame your enemy. These words are priceless. They are. Because a lot of people would see you, and of course this is natural, just form an opinion. See you form an opinion of you. And you don't know what they think about you. What does people, imagine? And, maybe the things they think about are not based on any scientific or tangible factors. They just look at you. They make up their minds about you. That's just one level. And the plight of the African is beyond description. So you want to understand the mindset of the people on both sides. One side is the storyteller, and the other side is the story hearer or receiver. Right? Now, when you hear the story, what does the storyteller intend to achieve? You got to ask yourself these questions. And what are you looking for? What are you yearning for? What is touching your heart or your mind or your soul or your spirit or your internal essence? What is touching it? Something is touching it. Something is making you to want to know about your origin. And here comes a storyteller. And the first story you hear, of course, who is this guy? Rod Stewart said, the first cut is the deepest. I think it was Rod Stewart, yeah. Yeah, it's Rod Stewart who said the first cut is the deepest. So the first story you hear about your origin sticks. That's what you know. That's going to control you for the rest of your life. And now the person who told you the story is gone. Far away. Far away. But you have been chained with that story. But one thing you need to do is just to find out, is this story true? And when you begin to try to find out, you will learn other versions of the same story. Some will say, A did this to B. And others will say that B did that thing to A. So now you hear the two versions. Which one are you going to believe? So what happens is that you become chained. You become tied to stake. Your heart and mind and soul and your internal being have been subjected to perpetual torture. Torture because, let's just say, someone sees you and says to you, your ancestors were sold by their brothers on the continent. That's the first cut. It is the deepest according to Rod Stewart. The first cut. Your ancestors were sold by their brothers on the continent. You walk away. That's what you know. And then someone else comes and the storyteller says, your ancestors were not sold. They were hijacked. They were taken by force and stolen and taken away. That's the first cut for you. That's what you hear. So now as you keep going, you begin to run into others who have heard different versions of this same story. So which one are you going to believe? So the thing is that the storyteller has succeeded in tying you to stake. You are dead. You are gone. You are done for. Everything about you is over because you are walking about with the understanding that's been conveyed to you by the storyteller. So you're dead because you are full of hate towards anyone who looks like your supposed ancestors. That's what's going to happen. So how are you going to redeem yourself? You should redeem yourself by ignoring all the stories. Find yourself. Don't find the criminal ancestor. Don't find the criminal brother, the criminal relative, the criminal continent. Don't find that, because you will be bound forever. And like I said, too many stories and too many versions of this story. But you're black. Peter Tosh said it, that as long as you are black, a black man, you are an African. You can't help it. No matter how you hate other blacks and love non-blacks, because the non-blacks have told you the story of your life, and that story is that you were sold by your brothers. Your ancestors were sold into slavery. That's what you heard. And who actually told you the story? Can't you just tell your story by yourself? So, but what we have seen is that the history books are full of all kinds of things, and of course you know the whole 9 yards. The history books are telling us the things that we just wonder where those things came from. But haven't you figured out that truth has been hidden for a long time. So you are left to wallow in self-pity, wallow in ignorance, wallow in fear, in hatred, in negativity, because someone has planted the seed of hate in you to separate you from your ilk. Because if you are together, you will accomplish more. But when you walk around and you go to point A, you see another group of people complaining about their fellow blacks with a different version of the same story. You go to another side, you see another group telling the same story, a different version, and they don't even love their origin because of what they've heard. Let me tell you, as long as you are believing the story that the people of your native continent sold your ancestors into slavery, you will remain in that mental slavery. It's mental slavery. You've been bound, you've been chained, you are believing a lie, and you're believing just something that doesn't sound good. So you're believing a lie. So it stays with you. So right now, the main thing is that we do not care who sold or who bought. If someone tells you that your ancestors were sold into slavery, who bought them? Who bought your ancestors? No, tell me who bought them. So who has more crime? No, who has more crime? So think about it. You want to sell something and you don't find a buyer. You will sell. But once you find a willing buyer who gives you money, that is a criminal right there. That person is guilty of the offense of buying. That's an offense of buying. So don't go about in hate, torturing yourself for the rest of your life. Or you're already black from the richest continent, and someone is trying to separate you from that continent by sowing a seed of hate so that you will hate anyone else from that continent. And by so doing, you may never get to the good things that you have been endowed with. I'm going to tell you, just make friends. Make friends. Find your roots. Identify with those who look like you. Find out what they have. If you are not a native African, but you let's just say you are European African, am I right? Is that African, European, African American, or something? I don't even know. Some people know that they wouldn't even accept being called African American. You're either African or you are American. It's a whole big confusion going on, in that domain. So you just choose your battle. But I'm sure that you will see sense in making friends, building bridges, throwing away hate that has been sown as a seed by somebody, that you don't know. Yeah? History, black history, and what does it really contain? What do they tell us when they say it's time for black history? We have heard stories about the journey. You got to be leery. You got to take a second look at the storyteller. Who is telling you the story? Take a good look. Take a second look. Get a second opinion. So you don't be full of hate. You got to be full of love. Because that's just love wins all the time. Because the storyteller may be up to no good. Keep you away from your inheritance. So you may never go back. But anyway, I must tell you that many people who consider themselves black outside Africa are moving to Africa to go and find something that should be natural. So don't stay in hate. Just go back to love. All right? And I must tell you, anyone who tells you the story, how you've been disadvantaged, how you've been sold and everything, that person doesn't even want to build you up. You need to be built up. So throw away that kind of story and jettison it. Forget about that source of the story. All right? So you don't go about hating your own people and being separated. That's called being ostracized. You have been ostracized by yourself. You ostracize yourself. I'm gonna bite my tongue here. You ostracize yourself strategically because someone had to sow the seed and you absorbed it. Now it's growing in you. You are carrying the tree of hate. Strategic, what do you call it? You've been strategically ostracized. Strategically ostracized. That's the best way to put it. Because of what they told you. And if you do not throw it away, you will remain miserable for the rest of your life. And I'm sure that that's not what you want to do. You don't want to be miserable. So you got to find your roots and just be happy. If I should say, be happy that in the first place you're black. Be happy. Just be happy that you're black, because the endowments of being black are innumerable. And that's not the subject of my talk today, but just be happy and then throw away negativity, go for the positive and find your roots. Begin to love and try to understand where your origin is so that you will not remain in chains. Don't chain yourself with the chains given to you by the storyteller who means no good for you. Find your roots and remain positive. Don't buy multiple versions of a story that you don't even know exactly how it came about. And then your life will be traumatized, controlled forever. Whatever that forever means. So take steps to change the narrative for yourself. And don't just be chained forever. I'm sure you got the message.